700 kilometers north of here in Manila is the Philippines' northernmost island of Mavulis. It's just 140 kilometers south of Taiwan, making it closer to Taiwan than to Manila. It's also the focus of some military preparations. Taiwan Talks is in Manila as we analyze the evolving links between the Philippines and Taiwan. Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Meet Kavat. Joining me to discuss this are Lucio Pitlo III, Asia-Pacific Pathways to Progress Foundation Foreign Policy and Security Analyst and former Taiwan Fellow, and Sherwin Ona, de la Salle University Political Science and Development Studies Associate Professor. Welcome both to the show today. Lucio, let me start with you first. So in this year's Philippine-hosted Balikatan exercise, US Marines were also spread out over the northern Philippine islands close to Taiwan, including Mavulis Island. Now, this island is described by Secretary Gilberto Teodoro as the spearhead of the Philippines. Can you tell me why? What does that represent?
Well, of course, these areas in the northernmost part of the country is very close to Taiwan. And of course, as we all know, tensions across the Taiwan Strait is simmering. So I think this is also an expression of concern about developments taking place in this, including, of course, the PLA drills, stepping up, exercises in this area, including in eastern part of Taiwan. So they're crossing the Bashi Strait, the waterway separating southernmost Taiwan with Batanes. So, of course, there's concern that the spillover effect of a potential conflict. And of course, at the same time, the alliance commitment of the Philippines with the US is also will be a factor in this.
Sherwin, is that to simply defend the Philippine territory on the Philippine side? Could it be used as a forward base for the US?
If you look closely at what have happened during the past iteration of Balikatan and even for this year, there are a lot of forward deployment of US forces, especially of US Marines, and the much vaunted HIMARS were all deployed in the Batanes area. You asked the question about are there forward bases being constructed? The Philippine Navy, for instance, has constructed a couple of naval forward operating bases or stations within the Batanes area. So that gives an idea that true to what Secretary Teodoro was trying to say, that the Philippines is viewing this primarily as a spearhead, probably, as you just mentioned, because of what Lucio said, that its proximity to Taiwan and perhaps an impending Taiwan contingency.
Lucio, just to go on the US side, so this new strategy from the US, the sort of scattering of forces, tell us about that.
So part of the strategies is this Pacific Deterrence Initiative, which is aimed at trying to modernize and upgrade, strengthen U.S. forward deployed presence in the so-called first island chain, and Philippines is very much part of that. Capacities that can probably send a deterrent signal, including the Typhoon mid-range, intermediate range missiles. That was for the first time deployed in the annual Balikatan drills.
Yeah.
And this comes at the heels of previous arms that were also has a very strong messaging impact, including HIMARS and also Patriot. The expansion of U.S. military footprint, in 3 sites in northern Philippines, plus potential dual-use port in Batanes, all in the northern part of the Philippines, of course, a lot of bearing for a potential Taiwan emergency or Taiwan contingency.
And I also understand that the island hopping strategy is also an evasive strategy on the part of the US. So the Marines, that particular regiment, will be moving from island to island, essentially all up and down the first island chain, to make it easier to evade Chinese strikes.
If you look at that unit, it's a new unit. It's a Marine Littoral Regiment. So it's a new unit, and the concept is that it is a mobile unit that can go in one place, build a certain infrastructure for defense and probably offense. And of course now, since there's not yet a conflict, it uses its abilities to do maritime domain awareness and surveillance.
Okay. So Lucia, let me turn to you now for Shangri-La. I mean, Sherwin actually attended, so we'll get his thoughts in a second. Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun warned of a quote, resolute military action against Taiwan's fanatical forces. And then he said that there is a limit to Beijing's restraint against the Philippines. Do you think China was making threats against Taiwan and the Philippines?
Well, in recent years, of course, we have seen Chinese generals attending Shangri-La Dialogue, speaking more confident and more acerbic, more, the tone is more strong. And this year, I think probably is the strongest. And I think some other analysts see those kind of remarks as threats, and of course for the Philippines and Taiwan, which of course in recent episodes have run-ins, with PRC, the Kinmen incident, and also Philippines over Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal. So I think there's an expectation, that China would raise very strong rhetoric, in the Shangri-La Dialogue. And of course, the Chinese defense minister spoke 2 days after President Marcos gave his very emphatic speech. So I think he is duty bound to, he's expected to make also a reply to that statement.
Sherwin, let me ask you, because you were actually there. You were there.
Yeah, I was there.
Did you actually catch all three speeches?
Yes, I did. And it's kind of ironic because when he started his speech, he gave this rendition of China as being a peace actor. And he referred to China as, the architect of these 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. And underscored that China is committed for cooperation, all of these things that makes it a peaceful actor. But suddenly there was a change of tone when he referred to Taiwan. He referred to Taiwan as a renegade, province, and of course with the Philippines as something that they will not tolerate. So this change of tone was very obvious, and I think what's telling is that.
So do you think it was an improvised speech?
I don't think so. I think it's a planned speech, as Lucio said, that it can be a provocative reply to what President Marcos gave, the speech of the president. But what's telling is that when the audience asked him the question, and this delegate from South Korea asked him, if you're telling us that you are here for peaceful intent, you are a peaceful actor, then why are you hosing Filipinos? Why are you surrounding Taiwan and doing military exercises? And that question elicited a thunderous applause from the audience, and he was not able to answer that question. He didn't even attempt to. He did not attempt to answer that question. No. So I think that situation is very telling.
I want to drill down on this. There is a limit to our restraint when it comes to the Philippines. Does this mean that they will use violence?
I think by the statement of the defense minister, I think they will continue to escalate. No question about it. I think they've already escalated. The recent reports coming in that they blockaded food supplies again, and they somewhat did not allow the transfer of a sick serviceman from the Sierra Madre outside of, to the mainland. Speaks a lot about, their plans to really escalate and to try really the resolve of the alliance. I mean, when President Marcos said that, this is the red line, if you kill one of our citizens, actually, that was the line of President Marcos. So it's very strong. If you kill one of our citizens, then this is close to the act of war and might trigger the activation or the invocation of the Mutual Defense Treaty. I think they're going to push it to see how the alliance, how the treaty will operate. And of course, they can just say that.
So you're saying it was the wrong strategy to say what the red line is, because you think that they will try to push beyond that?
Well, I think it's now time to show resolve, because what's left? I mean, if you kill servicemen, if you kill citizens, what's left, right?
I think making such strong statements is, of course, there's the intent was, to show that Philippines' resolve on this area is ironclad or very strong.
Right.
But at the same time, the risk is, if the other side called the bluff, tried to test it, and then the response was lukewarm or underwhelming,
Right.
then people will question, the resolve of the alliance.
Just moving to Taiwan, Lucio, how would you characterize the sort of different views within the Philippines when it comes to the security relationship with Taiwan? Because we know that last year the Philippines gave the US access to 4 more EDCA sites for the US military to rotate through, including some that were very close to Taiwan. Now, at the time, President Marcos explicitly said that these would not be used in a Taiwan contingency as a sort of launching or staging ground, although he did caveat by saying unless it is in self-interest. So if you could help us sort of categorize what are the feelings among Philippines in relation to Taiwan?
I would say that the Philippines' view and stance, towards the Taiwan Strait issue is evolving, because the dynamics in its hotspot is also changing rapidly. The capacity of the PLA and also the rhetoric, from Beijing, Philippines. We look at all these developments with a lot of wariness, because again, we are for the maintenance of preservation of the status quo, and that any forcible attempt to change the status quo, changing the status quo through force, coercion, or intimidation is not in the interest of everyone, not least the Philippines, which is very close to Taiwan, and we have a big community in Taiwan. And so I think a forcible takeover of Taiwan will put the Philippines in a very difficult position, because we will now be confronting 2 fronts, one in the west and one in the north. And so, at the very least, I would say that the concern is not academic; it's very real, it's very strategic.
So, Sherwin, would that be that you don't want to have China to the north and the west because you don't want to have a sort of a semi-hostile neighbor, or is it because of the threat that represents to the Philippines? So, as in, are the fates of Taiwan and the Philippines actually linked?
I agree that it is somehow linked because, as you know, many of our overseas Filipino workers are, a substantial number is in Taiwan, and that
200,000?
200,000 more, give or take, 200,000. And at the same time, I think at the level of policy making and defense planning, there is an appreciation that, anything that, if a Taiwan contingency occur, that will affect us. That will affect us tremendously, not only economically, but also with our partnership with the United States, right? Because the EDCA sites can be used as staging points. And this can probably, give a military significance to the Philippine participation, or can suck the Philippines into the conflict. But on the other hand,
so just to summarize,
yeah,
the Philippines does not want the conflict because of the fallout of that and the impacts on the Philippines. It also has the interest of the overseas Filipino workers who will now, well,
I think
there could be many fatalities.
President Marcos made it clear in Shangri-La that the maintenance of the status quo is paramount. I mean, any conflict, Taiwan Strait conflict or Taiwan contingency, will be a tremendous loss for for the world. Yeah, I mean, I think that was very clear.
Sure.
So yeah, I think there's wide consensus that it would be a huge economic catastrophe, if a Taiwan emergency took place. And for neighboring countries, like the Philippines, the influx of refugees, it would be a humanitarian tragedy.
Yeah.
And of course, the Philippines, because of its proximity and of course the presence of our over close to 200,000 fellow men in Taiwan, not to mention other ASEAN countries, and we are the closest Southeast Asian country to Taiwan. And I think our ASEAN neighbors will expect us to extend necessary assistance to their nationals if conflict breaks out. So it would really strain our capacity to respond. So of course, the status quo works to the interest of everyone, including that of the Philippines.
Sherwin, so let's talk now about whether we can categorize the different levels of involvement for the Philippines in any Taiwan crisis, maybe from minimal to maximal.
Oh, well, I guess the basic involvement would be on the humanitarian level. If a Taiwan contingency occurred, then I think we have already envisioned that the Philippines will be very active at the humanitarian level, primarily evacuating our nationals and other foreign nationals and perhaps refugees coming from Taiwan. Another level would be at the diplomatic aspect. The Philippines will definitely be a strong advocate for maintaining the status quo. In fact, in my view, President Marcos' participation in the Switzerland Peace Summit is one way of, reiterating that the status quo should be maintained, and peace in the region should be maintained as well.
So when you say diplomatic in response to Taiwan crisis, that means sort of condemnation on a diplomatic level.
Diplomatic level, and in his speech, he mentioned something about bridging. So the Philippines, of course, can be that bridge to de-escalate or even act as mediator. I'm just thinking in advance here.
Yeah.
Just to settle things down when conflict occurs.
Do you think, Lucio, for the Philippines, it would, if we think about the one China policy of the Philippines, would that be similar to the US, where they say very clearly that they recognize China, that this one China policy of theirs is founded on the peaceful resolution of Taiwan? So if that peaceful resolution is destroyed, what do you think the Philippines would do?
Yeah, I think the latitude of other countries when it comes to liberally interpreting one China policies, not all countries have, as the cloud of the U.S. or the ability to push back or against Chinese, retaliation or repercussions, when you try to, make statements, that to Beijing's view is, inimical to the red line, Taiwan. But of course, if any attempt to upset the status quo, especially through force, I think will not be in Beijing's interest, because it might compel other countries to rethink, the one China policy, because it would violate, the peaceful resolution of disputes, which many countries, said. So while they may agree that, while they may have views of one China policy that is closer to what PRC wants or have, but any forcible attempt, to take over Taiwan, I think would force a lot of these countries to rethink, to revisit, to reevaluate their view about the one China.
Yeah, so basically if China was unsuccessful, then they might find that there are countries around the world who decide to dispense with the one China policy.
When the bullet starts flying, then everybody will, look out for his or her own interests. And I don't think that these countries will tolerate a global economic meltdown because of an invasion. So I totally agree with Lucio that countries will be more forceful when an invasion or a contingency occurs.
Okay. Lucio, so a recent survey by a private polling company, WR Numero Research, found that nearly 85% of people in the Philippines said that their country should remain neutral in the conflict between Taiwan and China. And only about 10% of people believe that Taiwan should actually be supported by the Philippines.
I think that much of the attention of the Philippines is still very much tied to what is going on in the West Philippine Sea or the broader South China Sea. So I think the results is expected. But at the same time, of course, as we have discussed, the Taiwan Strait is also becoming a concern because of our proximity and because of the presence of our community there. And so I think while for the time being, reaction to the Taiwan Strait tensions is still officially more muted. I think, this.
Let me quote to you. So interestingly, the recent drills around Taiwan, called Joint Sword 2024A, one of the 9 zones was actually in the Philippines EEZ. And we also know that following the Nancy Pelosi, former US House Speaker's visit in August 2022, one of the missiles, I believe, fell into the Philippine EEZ. There was one, at least one, in Japan's, but also in the Philippines. So, maybe I can come to Sherwin for this, does geography allow the Philippines to be neutral?
That's what we're saying all along, that we cannot just, hide under the rock and claim that, any conflict, a Taiwan contingency will not affect us. So it will definitely affect us, but it depends on the level, right?
Let me ask you another final question then. So, of course, there is a mutual defense treaty, we've mentioned it, between the US and the Philippines. Should American troops be attacked by China in a Taiwan contingency, does that mean that the Philippines will be drawn in, actual troops, alongside the Americans?
That can be a possibility given the mutual defense treaty. But again, these decisions are political decisions. But if you look at, for instance, Balikatan, they're preparing for any contingency, But ultimately, this will be decided by political leaders. But if you try to ask us, academically speaking, then that is a possibility. That is a possibility. Nobody wants that, but that is a possibility.
Yeah, certainly. I think there will be a lot of discussions, when that thing happened, of course, nobody wants that. And of course, I think the actions of the Philippines right now is trying to support deterrence. So to try to prevent us from getting to that scenario. But of course, the other side sees it differently. And of course,
I see it as provocation.
Agree. And of course, do this, what they think as countermeasures, So I think this kind of action-reaction dynamics is also very risky. But good thing that U.S. and China, have tried to re-engage, military-wise, communications. While the Philippines and China, regrettably, our lines of discussions are, underwhelming. But at least the U.S. and China are trying to make sure that competition will be responsible and that maritime flashpoints, whether Taiwan Strait or South China Sea, will be managed well. So if the military commanders are talking, I think that gives us some good nights, to sleep. Otherwise, given the temperature, from the Taiwan Strait to the South China Sea, the absence of, high-level visits, official contacts, and of course, military lines of communication, that would be very dangerous.
Can I just add a little bit? You might think that the Philippines is not a party to this. It can be seen as, a big country competition. But I think President Marcos in Shangri-La made this very clear, that the security of the region is an inclusive one, meaning, it should not be between two countries who decide about the security fate of this region. I think he was very clear that it should be inclusive, that, he mentioned the ASEAN centrality and the role of other nations in determining, of course, the security framework of the region. I think that is a good contribution coming from the Philippines, that this is not between China and the United States or Philippines and China. This is the concern for the whole world.
Yes, and that, of course, is a narrative that China is trying to push back against.
Of course.
They want to have only bilateral relationships or issues. They do not want to say that any issue, the West Philippine Sea or even Taiwan, is a global issue. We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much. Lucio Pitlo III and Sherwin Ona for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Take care from here in Manila, and we will see you back in Taiwan.
过人生的话，你发现说我们大部分都是爱美。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性，
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world. Charted by the freest country in Asia.
5, 4, 3, 2.
A warm welcome to Taiwan Plus News. I'm Ian Kavat. Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC.
Public buses to be electric by 2030. A mission that begins with listening.
and telling the stories of Taiwan.
In Taipei for Taiwan Plus.
Drawing insight from original thinkers.
And sharing it with the world. Taiwan Plus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.